Hello, everyone. So I am going to go over this article that is in the um, newspaper or WEAR TV News, actually. That is a TV station. So it was on here with Ms. Kavina, who talked about the stuff that's going on in the medical examiner's office. So I'm going to read you an article, 3 PDFs. This one is a redacted one. So obviously changes have been made that are acceptable with the medical examiner's office. So I'm going to read this to you. And it says, we at Waters and Hibbert, agreeing with our locally owned funeral homes in Pensacola, are coming to you with the hopes of sparking change in our District 1 medical examiner's office for the past few years. While we and our families have been at the mercy of Dr. Deanna Oleski, numerous issues have occurred. The conditions are abhorring. Communication is null. Deceased humans and their families are being discarded and mistreated by a doctor who is expected to operate with honor and integrity. Human beings are released to funeral homes with used gloves, biohazard materials, and trash stuffed in their cavities. The body bags are torn and leaking fluid. Autopsied bodies are in dire condition when they leave her care, causing embalming and funeral services to be a demanding feat. In case of accidental overdose or other fatal mistakes, Dr. Oleski will list the cause of death as a suicide. This understandably causes irreparable emotional damage to families. Can you imagine your child, sibling, or your friend being listed as a suicide when they simply made a mistake? This is an example of the mental suffering our families experience. Here's a real-life example. So-and-so lost his son to an accidental overdose in June 2022. Dr. Oleski listed his son's cause of death as suicide. Sitting with him in our foyer, we saw the weight and agony of this set in. We kept him here at our funeral home as he denied, cried, and mourned for his son, whom he thought had purposely ended his own life. Blank passed away this March after spending 3 of his last 9 months living believing his son had murdered himself. This is an abhorrible situation that should never have happened. In situations like this, we hope sincerely Dr. Oleski will re-examine her findings and correct her mistakes in a timely manner. Unfortunately, this does not happen. Blank family had to submit evidence that so-and-so's son kept logs of his medication, that his death was accidental. It took Dr. Oleski 3 months to correct her mistake. In other cases, amendments can take up to 9 months. An example of this who passed in June of 2022, whose cause of death is still pending to date. On a similar subject, burial transit permits can take a week or longer to be approved. These permits are required. Okay. Oh, I lost my space. Okay, are required burial, cremation, and they are required when a body is to be shipped to another state. When these permits are delayed, we must hold the body until we receive permission to proceed disposition when a funeral home like ours only has 3 body coolers. This creates obvious issues. On the subject of delays and limited space, Dr. Oleski, before releasing her hold, will call our staff to pick up the decedent in years past. The examiner would keep the held bodies at their facility. This has changed in a question unanswered, but it causes serious issues for funeral homes like ours with limited refrigeration capacity. Moving on to Dr. Oleski's staff, we find numerous additional problems. Her staff is consistently unaware of timeline statuses of bodies, what and where their personal effects are, etc. When a family or a funeral home in another state requests to know the state of the deceased, we are never provided with an answer. This causes frustrations for those who want to schedule visits and farewells with their departed family. The lack of communication between Dr. Oleski and her staff understandably causes communication issues between the funeral homes. We are never permitted to speak with Dr. Oleski herself, and with her staff displaying lack of knowledge, we find ourselves at a standstill. On top of these issues, their offices close at 4 o'clock. Holidays turn into 4-day vacations, as we are only permitted to pick up bodies between the hours of 12 and 2. Obvious issues are caused by this, since funeral homes are usually filled with families' bodies to be embalmed, scheduled to adhere to, death certificates, file, etc. All of this is to say we desperately need a change. If Dr. Oleski cannot meet deadlines properly, read her findings, make realistic reports, we need to have better Pensacola cares about her inhabitants, and we care about making every Pensacolian is well cared for. We implore you to help us improve and deliver our promise. Here's another one. This is from the Trahan family, and this was also on here. You'll see these. Okay, so, and it says, the medical examiner's office has been problematic since the day that Dr. Oleski was appointed. They are constantly putting medical examiners hold on deceased individuals for undetermined amounts of time. This makes it difficult for families who have just lost a loved one to plan their service and come to closure. It's not unusual to make 2 removals on one deceased individual, picking them up from the facility and bringing them back. I don't understand why they don't make the initial removal. There's no rhyme or reason to why they put a medical examiner hold on an individual. Medical examiners in the past would always take deceased individuals into their custody if there was no doctor to sign, which would help expedite the process. They are extremely slow in approving cremation permits, and families get upset at the funeral home because of the medical examiner's incompetence. The medical examiner is slow in entering the deceased individual into the EDRS system, which causes problems with our families receiving their death certificates in a timely manner. The families need the certified death certificates to get business conducted. There are problems with their administration, especially rudeness on the phone. They are reluctant to call doctors for assistance in finding doctors to assign the death certificate. The responsibility has now been put on the health department. The medical examiner will often force the doctor to change the cause of death from the doctor's original opinion. Funeral homes get stuck in the middle of these arguments with no power of authority to do anything about it. The deceased are oftentimes not clean leaving the medical examiner's office. They are covered in bodily fluids that can simply be taken care of by running water over the deceased. They leave trash inside the bags with the deceased, which is obviously disrespectful. Once again, we've never had this issue with past medical examiners. In conclusion, our medical examiner's office is the worst I've ever seen. They have no respect for the deceased individual, considering their office made the statement that they will no longer be performing autopsies on hanging victims. I respectfully ask whatever authority to please remove this current medical examiner and replace her with someone with competence. And that is from the Trahan one. And let's go to the third one here. This one is from Pensacola Memorial Gardens, and it says, my name is Gerald Mitchell, and I'm the funeral director in charge of the Pensacola Gardens Funeral Home, writing to voice my frustration with our current medical examiner and her staff. Okay, first and foremost, the autopsies performed in this office I would almost equate with mutilation. Most of the time, the arteries and veins are so butchered that they leak when trying to embalm. Even previous medical examiner would tie off the major arteries and veins so that they were easily visible among the surrounding tissues. Often the incision made to perform the cranial autopsy is too close to the top of the head instead, which makes it difficult to camouflage so our families can have a pleasant memory of their loved one at the funeral service. I believe a Winn-Dixie butcher takes more pride and care in their work. The turnaround time for cremation authorities has never taken as long as it currently takes under this medical examiner. I received an autopsy from Tallahassee and was done properly without appearing mutilated. If the current medical examiner is kept, she should be required to train with those in Tallahassee to learn how to properly perform an autopsy, not only with the benefits of embalmers, but for the families of the deceased as well. Sydney and the medical examiner's office have been rude to our directors when we call to get clarification on medical examiner's hold and other issues. I personally picked up a deceased from the medical examiner's office, and when the deceased was brought out to me, the person releasing to my care did not catch her name, accidentally dropped the deceased's head on the table and said, oops, she didn't feel it. The lack of care and unprofessional is my concern. This is absolutely horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. And to know that people are constantly labeled as suicide victims when they didn't commit suicide, and they're not going to do autopsies on hanging victims, even if they didn't hang themselves. Just because it looks like something doesn't mean that's what it is. You can have a phone that looks like a piece of cake, but that doesn't mean it's not a piece of cake. It can look like a phone. So let's get this straight and get this figured out. And police department, get to work and find out who did this to my son. Let's get some justice for Adam.